fundraising for the Dharmasar Nuns Monastery. And I mentioned earlier, I regard all of you as like family. And just like you've been feeding me for 30 years, some of you I know came in the very first time I was here. And so those of you who say I've been putting on weight, it's your fault, not mine. Yes? Certainly, yes. Okay, a pause for a few moments. Yeah.
What's the reserve?
It was 2,000. Yeah. Very good. And so, for the last 30 years, as the movie said, that I am a monk who runs on inspiration. And sometimes you do impossible things and it works out because there's something in our world which is beyond science. It's beyond what is reasonable. It is called inspiration, where you reach for something much higher than is possible, and you find so many times you can actually get there. Whether it's giving a talk, whether it's meditating, whether it's building a monastery, whatever you do, I've had lots and lots of faith. For those of you who ever go to Bodhinyana Monastery, you will look at that main hall which I built. I was a builder of the main hall there. And the monks will tell you that before we had a roof on that hall, we had these end walls which were huge gables. And before we could put the roof on, we needed a few more bricks on the very top. So remember, it was just a wall stepped up. So what did I do? We didn't use a ladder because I hadn't got a ladder high enough. So I walked up the wall right to the very top with a bucket of cement in one hand and a few bricks in the other hand. And the monks who saw me said, Ajahn Brahm, that is really dangerous. It was fortunate I wasn't a senior monk then, so I was expendable. But nevertheless, it was a crazy thing to do, balancing on this thin wall, going right to the very top just to lay a few bricks. And when people said, what do you do that for? And said, just inspiration. That kept me up there and stopped me falling off. And so much of our life is actually looking at the difficulties we have in life, and sometimes they seem insurmountable. Whether you do have cancer, whether you do have the loss of a son, whether you do have someone very dear to you who is not here anymore, whether you do have problems in business. Sometimes people say, you monks don't understand what we have to go through. We do, because we have our own problems in monastic life. But one advantage I have is you always have this incredible faith that if you're doing a good thing, that if you are looking at the future rather than the past, and if you look upon that future with a sense of hope, that everything is possible, you know that you can create an amazing future. So things like cancer, things like lack of money, we were talking earlier. When I first came to Perth 30 years ago, we did have a house at that time, number 4 Magnolia Street. Just for interest, I looked at the accounts. And that house was worth $50,000, and the debt to the bank was $49,000. So that's where we started off, with $1,000 of equity and nothing else. But little by little, because we had faith, and it's not just, because I know some people, they just ask you for money, but we don't do that as monks and nuns. We really get in there, and we actually work our butts off. And you've seen me even in the little photo there, which was only a few months ago, standing on top of the Jhana Grove roof, still working at my age. And in Thailand, I'm a Chao Kun, which is a very high monk. I don't know if you've ever seen any other Chao Kuns on top of ladders or working on a roof, but I love doing that because I like to contribute whatever I can. And I try and do my very best to really work hard for Buddhism. And it's not just in this country over here. I'm very happy to go over to Hong Kong and serve as much as I can over there. And also to Malaysia. I've been going over there for many years, and not going over there to raise funds for Perth. I go over there to raise funds for people in Malaysia as well, simply because I'm a very well-known monk now, and I can get what's called BOS. If you don't know what BOS means, it means bums on seats. In other words, you can actually help and serve. So that's been my life. I get lots of happiness and energy and inspiration, learning how, or trying to do my very, very best, not just for Buddhism, but for each one of you sitting here. I think you all know that if any one of you are ever in trouble, if you need a visit in the hospital, you need some chanting, you need anything, you can always call on our monks, because you are family, just like you are my sister or my daughter or my mother, and you're in trouble, that we are always there for you. And it's because there's more of you than there are of us. That's why it's really important we have more nuns and more monks to serve everybody. And because you all know the importance of the Sangha as examples of leadership, of kindness, of frugality, of just literally goodness. I go to many places in this world, and just to have people that you can rely upon as being honest, and you've tested our honesty, my honesty in particular over 30 years, you've tested our sincerity, you've tested not just what I say, but how I behave. Many of you have seen me for 30 years, you've tested me out, you've seen how we behave, and all the monks and nuns, how they behave as well, and you find out that we are the real deal. We are monks, we practice as monks, we live like monks, we speak like monks, we quack like monks. I quack jokes. But whatever it is, you find out that we do live that life, and which means that you get inspired. There's many people, it's not just from Thailand, from Sri Lanka and many other places, they come and say they lost their faith in the monks in these countries because they live like too luxurious a life. And it's wonderful to see that there are real monks in this world, real nuns who live just like in the time of the Buddha. In other words, people that you can restore your faith that this particular part of religion is real, it works, it inspires, it teaches, and it teaches in such a way which does help and solve people's problems. Just even last night, a girl I hadn't seen for 7 years, and she came up to me and said, "Do you remember me?" And her face was very familiar. And she said that 7 years or so ago, that I'd just given her a simple piece of advice. She was in a big mess. She said to me this, in a lot of trouble, and a simple piece of advice had turned her life around, and now she was happy, well, prosperous, and having a very wonderful life. And she said, "I just came up to say thank you." And so, we can really help in a very big way to solve people's problems. And that's why that we want to build places like a nun's monastery. Before, I've called these places nuns' factories, so we can make more nuns and turn them out. But it's these great little hospitals which serve and heal some of the many problems of people's lives. Places where the real hospitals can't really solve the problems. You may go to psychologists, and many of the psychologists, I will say this with sincerity, over here in Perth and also in Sydney, they get many of their best ideas from people like me, the monks. Every time I go and give a talk at a psychology conference, everyone is taking notes. And this is also true that practicing psychologist here, she came to see me once and said, "I got my permission to be a psychologist by going to university, but all the practical stuff, the stuff which works, I learned from you monks and you nuns." So this is actually where we start to really serve and help the society in a very, very big way. And that is why so many people are coming here tonight, why so many people come to our temple in Nolamara, while they visit Dharmasar, while they visit Serpentine, while we go overseas. And we are a monk and nun factory now. Over in Hong Kong, you see one of our products. Again, we don't send the products overseas until they've got Ajahn Brahm's quality control stamp on them, and that's Venerable Hasapanya. There is another fundraiser going on today which we couldn't live stream in Indonesia. We sent Ajahn Brahmali over there. So we're actually exporting monks and nuns overseas. As the financial crisis has stopped the export of sheep and cows and iron ore to China, we are still exporting monks and nuns. That is the new industry in Western Australia, which is going to take off the export of Dharma from this country, which is an amazing thing to know. And it is the number of invitations that the monks and the nuns get to teach overseas are so great, there's no way in the world that we can actually meet all those unless we have more good monks and good nuns. And so all the people here, sometimes you don't realize just how popular the monks and nuns from West Australia are. Whether it's over in Sri Lanka, where actually today I was supposed to be in Sri Lanka for the full moon day tomorrow, one of the holiest days of the year in Sri Lanka, called Poson Day, marking the day when Buddhism first came to Sri Lanka. And I got an invitation from His Excellency, the President of Sri Lanka, to lead the official government celebrations for Poson Day today. And that's actually how popular these monks and nuns are over here. Even in a place like Sri Lanka with many thousands of monks, they should be exporting monks, but no, they are importing monks from Western Australia. That's how well the Western Australian monks and nuns are regarded in today's world. And it's inspiring to make more of these monks and nuns. And I'm saying this because, a lot of places, even traditional Buddhist countries, actually look to Western Australia, where you're living, as a model for how Buddhism should be practiced and conducted for our future. Now people are looking from these countries. Even in Thailand, it did say over there that after the Bhikkhuni ordination that the Sangha here was excommunicated from the Thai Forest Sangha, but still many of those monks over in Thailand are looking to see what's happening over here. Because if it works over here, and we develop a very beautiful dual Sangha of bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, monks and nuns living in harmony, inspiring people, teaching people, making Buddhism very strong, it's going to be imported from here back into Thailand and also into Sri Lanka and many other countries. I do travel around the world. I know what I'm talking about. I talk to many senior monks and senior teachers. They all tell me, it's just officially we can't support you, but unofficially, keep on going. It's a wonderful thing you're doing, and we want this to work. And I want this to work as well. When I first contemplated, as the movie showed, the documentary showed, having bhikkhunis here in Western Australia, it was something which was a very difficult thing to achieve. Again, you had to just go on inspiration. You knew in your heart this was a good thing to do. And we wanted to bring Buddhism into the 21st century. And why to, as I said in the documentary, exclude 50% of the population. The 50% of the people here are women. And you may not want to become nuns, but you want to have the opportunity if you really so desire. And you also want to have the opportunity, to hear Dhamma from the women, not just from the men. There are many people who are proud of what we are doing because it's making Buddhism something that you can show to your friends and say, this is a great path, a great religion. It doesn't just talk about compassion and wisdom, it actually practices it, puts it into the words and actions. And this is one of the reasons why people do get inspired. As Dennis would often say that Buddhism here is congruent. What it says, what it teaches is what it does. And that gives people inspiration. The inspiration comes from the monks and the nuns. We really give everything for this particular life. I have sacrificed a lot, as much as I can possibly give to make this happen. But personally, my duty hasn't finished yet towards the bhikkhunis. I know that many people have said, well, ordaining bhikkhunis is one thing, but you have to make sure they're well trained, that they're looked after. Because otherwise, you ordain a person, it's just like giving birth to a child and not caring for them, not sending them to school, not making sure they grow up to be good people. And this is actually one of my jobs. And part of that job, when I first even was at Dharmasar Monastery at the auction to purchase it, and I realized at that time this is not the end of this project, that you have to give ordination to women. And once we achieved that was it 3 years? No, 4 years ago now. Once we achieved the ordination of bhikkhunis, which was very difficult, we managed to do it and survive. And now the next thing was to make sure that the bhikkhunis are well trained and have a place to stay and a place to practice. And quite personally, I think I mentioned to many of you privately before, this is my obligation to see this project through to the end, to make sure that we do have decent facilities for the bhikkhunis. And once, quite frankly, once that is completed, then I feel that I have completed my obligation to the bhikkhunis, making sure they do have the place to stay, they do have the teachings, and they do have the opportunities. And once that's finished, Venerable Sisters, it's now all up to you. Make use of those facilities and make sure it works. And I have been very impressed, personally as a teacher, as a person who's been a monk for such a long time. I know a good bhikkhuni from a bad bhikkhuni, and I can't see any of those bad bhikkhunis at Dharmasara. I can see them elsewhere, but not at our place. You do have a very high quality of nuns at Dharmasara who actually deserve to have a good place to stay and live. And I have witnessed the sacrifices which these nuns have been doing. People like Venerable Karunika, who's been working day in, day out, trying to recently trying to have an application for a grant from the government to help out Dharmasara Nuns Monastery, trying to raise funds in all different places so that we can build this amazing temple at Dharmasara. And it is a great historic achievement. Once this is finished and complete, no other place in the world, and I mention this, in the world, will have a monastery for Theravada bhikkhunis like that. A place which is not extravagant, which is exactly what you'd expect for the monks. Actually, the monks have far more extravagant monasteries in many countries than what we envisage for the bhikkhunis here. But in our tradition, it's always something which is simple, practical, but not extravagant. There will not be any chandeliers or marble or any Ferraris parked in the car park. It is simple, practical, the sort of place which you would like to live in, which you would like to come to. And I mention that because it is not just for the nuns, it's for you as well. Many of you have stayed at Bodhinyana Monastery. You've come there for a little retreat or just to stay for a few days, to unwind, to get the beautiful energy from the monks. And I want that to be available for the women to go and stay at Dharmasara Monastery as well. The benefits of having a quiet place to stay are huge. Some years ago, this fellow came up to see me at Bodhinyana Monastery. I'd never seen him before, and he said he was the building surveyor of Serpentine Jarradale Council. And he came up to tell me he was just about to retire. He'd been working there for about 10 years. He'd signed all our building applications, but I'd never seen him. And he said, "I've come to thank you for your car park." I said, "What do you mean?" And he said every time he got stressed out at work, every time that he felt frustrated or drained or angry, he would get in his car, drive to our monastery, park it in the car park and just sit there. And just the peace of our car park was enough to relieve his stress. And he went back to work a happy man. That saved his heart from having cardiac arrest, prevented cancer, kept him in a good mood with his wife when he went home. It saved his life. The car park at Bodhinyana Monastery, one of the holiest places in the Shire of Serpentine Jarradale. So part of the donations today raised will build a car park at Dharmasara Monastery, which is required by the Shire of Swan. So because of that, don't just think that these are funds which are just going to make sure that nuns live a comfortable life. It's not for them, it's for you. It's a hall where you can listen to the Dharma. And it's also a hall where we can do more nuns' ordinations. This is the seed from which bhikkhunis will go all over the world. You know, places like Hong Kong. Now, you've got lots of nuns in Hong Kong, but you're getting a reinvigoration of Western-trained nuns, you know, who come from Asian countries, going off to places like Hong Kong, going off to places like Malaysia, Singapore, even in Indonesia, and even going to places like Thailand and Sri Lanka, because somehow or other the energy we've got here, being in a Western country where we can question, where we can innovate. Sometimes in Asia it's just so contracted, so conservative, you just can't do anything new. And that innovation and new ways of thinking about Buddhism, keeping the core teachings, but managing to express them in a new way, I think is the wonderful thing where West meets East. We have the great innovation of the West, the great spiritual heart of the East. Put those together, we have this powerful combination of innovative conservatism. Ways of actually spreading this Dharma in new ways which really touch the hearts of so many people and inspire. This is one of the things when I travel around the world, that too many people are depressed, too many people have lost hope, too many people don't know who to respect and look for leadership. We don't respect our politicians at all. We don't respect, you know, our even scientists. We don't respect our philosophers. We don't respect police. But the one thing we can respect and be inspired by is your monks and nuns, how you can go and check them out. You can see them. You can see how they live. You can talk to them. You can follow them day in, day out. We're not monks who just come out and give a talk and then disappear behind closed doors and you don't know what we do when you're not around. You know, you see us all the time. And because of that, you have faith and confidence that this is a high quality, real monks, real nuns who do what they say. And that's why I try to be open as I possibly can. You can go into the room where I live in Serpentine. You can see how I live. You don't hide anything. You can rummage through any drawer in my room to see what I have. You will not find any copies of Playboy magazine in there. You won't find any sort of contraband. You know, we do live, because we do this because personally over 40 years almost I've been a Buddhist monk now. And now I get inspired by these teachings. They're perfect, they're beautiful, they're pure, they inspire me, they give me so much energy and meaning in my life. Just the ability to serve other people. And this is what I do. I do work very hard. I know some of you say I work too hard. And I travel around the world too much. And I keep on tiring myself out by giving talk. And it's not just the talks I give, it's all the administration, writing books and doing all this other stuff which you don't see. Even, last Thursday night, because I didn't have much time, I started at 2:30 in the afternoon, finished at 11:30, just a 9-hour, just to edit the second volume of Opening the Door of Your Heart. Coming soon in a bookshop close to you. And because Opening the Door of Your Heart was just so well received. Recently, when I was in Indonesia, just with Burr, who many of you know, and Peng, many of you know, strong supporters of our monastery, and they were surprised when many people came up to take photos with me. These were Indonesians because they read my books in Bahasa, the local language. And one of the men who came up said, "I've read your book, it's a great book, can I take a photo?" Who are you? And he was a Catholic priest. And he says he uses those stories in his sermons. And I was so proud. So these are really good talks. And this latest book, sometimes I say, how can I, as a monk, raise funds for Dharmasar Nuns Monastery? So I write volume 2. And I was working till from 2:30 to 11:30, not writing, I've already written it, editing it, so it can be published, so all the proceeds go to this project. That's my dana. Written the second volume of the book so that the nuns here can have a bit more money for the Dharmasar Nuns Monastery. And you know how much royalties we got from opening the door of your heart #1? I tried to count them up. So far it's over $203,000, not including GST. I'd be a rich person if I didn't give it all away. But actually I'm more wealthy when you do give things away. Because that's, the whole wealth which I have as a monk is your contentment and happiness. That is my wealth. Sometimes a person asks, Ajahn Brahm, you've been being a monk for such a long time. How much superannuation have you got for your retirement? And the superannuation is for your pension. I got nothing. No money for my retirement. My retirement pension is in here. In the heart, the happiness and joy of 30 years of service to the Buddhist Society of Western Australia and also to the people in many other countries, including recently in Hong Kong. That is my pension. That is my inspiration. That is my wealth. And I mention that now to each one of you because soon, if you haven't done already, we're going to ask you to look into your wallets, get out your credit cards, write out those checks, and please do not think whether you can afford it or not. Never ever think like that. Because I said last night that one of the greatest donations I ever gave, when I had money, not much of it, was as a student. I was a poor student. Now remember, my father had died. And my mother lived in a council flat which was subsidized housing. She could not support me at all. I used to get jobs in every vacation to try and get money to survive as a student in a big university like Cambridge. And so I really had to sort of do it tough. And at that particular time, I was a Buddhist, and a nun came to give a talk. And it wasn't deep Dharma, it was just how compassionate and kind she was by looking after an orphanage in Sikkim, in the north of India. And I was so inspired, I went to the bank the next day and got a £10 draft to give to this nun. You may not think that £10 is much money. This was in 1969 or 70. But for me, as a student, that was 2 weeks' money for my food. So I ate, but not much those 2 weeks. I'll make up for it now. But I did that. I went hungry. I really did go hungry. It hurt me. But that was the best thing I ever did. If I had the chance again, I'd have given £20 and gone hungry for 4 weeks. Simply because it got right into my heart. This was a donation which was going to be really good. And what else am I going to spend my money on? Girls, they were really expensive. This was, I was a student at the time. This was better value for money than anything I've ever done before. So that's why this is inspiration, the power of inspiration. Because you are doing something which is amazing. And you will see it. We're just trying to figure out who's going to get the building contract. We've pretty much decided, but this is a secret between the nuns and I and a few other people. And we're going to be going ahead pretty soon. By the end of the year, I'd imagine you start to see things moving at Dharmasara, and you start to see the building coming up, 1 or 2 years. That's all it's going to take. One of the things here is that we deliver. The Buddhist Society of Western Australia, when you give any donations, you can see they're being used. You've seen Bodhinyana Monastery, what it can do. All your donations over the last 30 years. You can see Jhana Grove, just the facility, which is world class. People come from, seriously, from so many countries, from Europe, from South America, obviously from the United States and from South Asia and Southeast Asia. They come to Jhana Grove to meditate because there's not another place like it in the world. And it is world-class and famous. And you built that. Each one of you, all those funds we raised in the past, we deliver. And you can see that we will deliver on Dharmasar Nuns Monastery as well. And a hall you can be proud of. You will be actually going into there to meditate and to listen to sermons. You'll be visiting there to see the ordinations of even more nuns there. This world-breaking events of ordaining women as bhikkhunis. You know, people fight for this in Christianity. You know, that still the Anglican Church has ordained women. The Catholic Church has never done that, probably will never do that. Judaism, no way. And Islam, no way at all. But Buddhism, you know, we are a modern religion. Ancient roots, universal timeless truths, but able to adapt to modern times, to be able to meet sort of the expectations, you know, of Westerners, Asians, Americans, and everybody. It's incredibly powerful that we can do this. Adapt without sacrificing our core values. And you will, every one of you will be able to come to that place and see that. Even those listening in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is not that far away. All those people listening to me in Hong Kong, I visited you about 3 times already. And I will visit you again in February. Now it's your turn to come and visit me. So I expect you to come and visit, you know, the places which you sponsor and look after, and to be inspired. You saw the video of Dharmasar Nuns Monastery, and quite frankly, it is much more beautiful and inspiring than Bodhinyana. You know what happened? That some of the monks were saying, well, can't we swap? Because it's a much more beautiful monastery. It's inspiring, it's amazing. That was the last piece of remnant bush so close to Perth when we purchased it. And it's a place with so incredible potential. 563 acres. And I did some research that 563 acres is roughly the size of the Vatican in Rome. So I have big plans for Dharmasara. Well, that's probably how Vatican started. Just a small little place, and they were raising funds to build a little hall for the popes. But anyhow, it's such a beautiful place where any of you can come and stay. And, you know, when we have the accommodation for it. And just to be able to go there, to be able to sit down in a quiet place and just to drink in the peace. It's not just a bush either. Sometimes when you get monks and nuns staying in a forest like that, it changes the whole atmosphere of the place. The place does become a holy place. People realize that in Bodhinyana and also in Dharmasara. As soon as you get through that door, those gates, you realize you're not going into just a forest. This is not just some sort of nature reserve. This is a holy place. And because good people live there, and they practice a lot of meditation and a lot of compassion, it changes the whole atmosphere. Even the animals can feel that. As many of you know, you're going to visit these places and you keep falling over the kangaroos. You know, they don't get out of the way. Other places, they run away from you. In these places, they know they're safe, they're cared for, which is a beautiful thing to feel, that you're cared for too, that you don't need to run away. You will not be criticized or blamed. You'll be accepted, you'll be loved, you'll be listened to, you'll be valued. In a world where everybody is striving for such things that are on offer for free in these monasteries. And over the years they get holier and holier, which means that people go there and they don't even need to be Buddhist, and they feel the benefits of just having a place in the world, that when you are tired, when you are depressed, when life has exhausted you, when you can't find any hope anywhere else, you can just drive in there, talk to one of the monks or the nuns, and my goodness, it works. It's maybe not the words which the monks or nuns say, it's the very fact you go to a peaceful, holy place just to hang out and to drink in all the good things which the monks and nuns have built up over those years. These are rare places to be found in our world. And so fortunate in Western Australia, we have the space, we have the peace, you know, we have the incredible good lay support. And with that lay support, with each one of you comes the monks and nuns, and every time that you do something inspiring by donating money for this, it makes me feel I've got to deserve this. And the nuns as well. When you get this hall, you have to live up to it. You have to be even better nuns. because many people sacrifice a lot to build this for you. And so I want you to remember that every time you sit in that hall once it's built, to remember where it came from all the hard work, all the sweat, all the sacrifice of so many people. Because that's what I do in Bodhinyana Monastery in Jhana Grove. And that means that I am not going to make the gifts of the faithful and not be worthwhile. I'm going to make sure by my own practice of meditation, keeping my precepts, even more than my precepts, I'm going to live a virtue which is much more than demanded of me by a nun. I'm going to be pure-hearted. I'm going to sacrifice as well, because people have sacrificed to me. I may be tired, but I'm still going to listen to people. I may be bored, but I'm still going to generate compassion to listen to another question about the same thing, hour after hour after hour. I'm going to be kind enough to sit and smile and have my photograph taken again. I'm going to do that because you sacrificed for me, and I'm going to sacrifice for you, even until my mouth hurts through smiling. I heard this when I was in Indonesia, because I was staying very close to the ancient Buddhist monument, Borobudur. And the people looking after Borobudur were telling me that there were so many flash photographs taken around that great monument that the particular type of stone was degrading and decaying. And they were thinking of limiting the number of flash photographs around the great monument of Borobudur. And I was thinking of also asking the same for me, because all the flash photographs, I'm decaying too. But no, I'm fine. Please take as many photographs as you possibly can. Why? Because it creates this beautiful inspiration and happiness and joy, which is the heart of our life. You can eat the best food on the table, excellent food you have in this hotel. But what is the good of food if you can't sort of enjoy the happiness and the joy of this? Is more than just having a dinner. This is actually doing something beautiful and wonderful in your life. And soon we'll be having these auctions. And there's one little story. I love telling stories from Ajahn Chah, my great teacher in Thailand. And I got this story. This is, I think this is going to be in Open the Door of Your Heart #2, because it hasn't been published in any other book, simply because no one knows this except myself and the person who told me this story. It was a man from Sydney who came to me and told me that some years ago, when Ajahn Chah was still alive and talking, that this man had heard of this great teacher in Thailand, Ajahn Chah, and had some questions he wanted to ask him. And so he travelled all the way from Sydney, first of all to Bangkok, and asked, where does this Ajahn Chah live? And they say in Ubon Ratchathani, which is another, about 400 miles, about 600 kilometers from Bangkok. So I managed to get on the train to go to Ubon Ratchathani, and you get there, where is this monastery? It's another sort of 10 kilometers outside of town. He managed to get a taxi to take him to Wat Pah Pong, where Ajahn Chah was. He'd gone to Thailand for no other reason but to ask these questions. And when he went into Wat Pah Pong, the monastery, it's a big monastery. He had to find out, where is Ajahn Chah? He was very lucky that Ajahn Chah was home that day. So he went to under the Ajahn Chah's hut. He had an area under the hut where he would receive guests all day. And as soon as he went there, he saw a couple of hundred other people surrounding the great master. And he waited and waited and waited for his turn, but it never came. After 2 or 3 hours, he was still no closer to asking these important questions, for which he travelled all the way from Sydney to ask. He realized there's no way he could ever come close enough to the great master to ask. Disappointed, he got up from his seat and went walking to the front of the monastery where his taxi would meet him. Only then did he realize his taxi would not be there for another hour. He had 1 hour to kill, when he saw some of the monks sweeping the grounds of the monastery. Thinking at least he can make some good karma, he picked up a broom and started sweeping himself. And as he was sweeping, he felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned around. That hand belonged to Ajahn Chah. Ajahn Chah had somehow or other, he did have psychic powers. I was there, I can say that, now he's dead. He did have magic powers. He'd obviously known that this was a man who travelled from so far, who would never have the opportunity again to ask his questions of this great master. And Ajahn Chah said to him, through an interpreter, a very simple teaching, which this man from Sydney said changed his whole life. Really powerful teachings do change you. And it was a simple teaching. Ajahn Chah said to this man, if you are going to sweep the grounds of a monastery, give it everything you've got. Don't do it half-hearted. And then Ajahn Chah went away. The man understood it didn't just mean sweeping the grounds of a monastery. It meant everything else he did in life. He had to give it everything he got. Whether it's at work, he had to work 100%, never thinking about the dinner he was going to have when he got home, never thinking about the cricket or the football while he was at work. But when he went to the football or the cricket, he'd give that everything he got, cheering for his team. When he rested, he'd give that everything he'd got. When he was playing, he'd give play everything he got. He slept well, he played well, he worked hard, because whatever he did, he'd give it everything he got. And that meant he became a very successful man in his business. He became a wonderful husband because he gave marriage everything he got. Being a father, he gave being a father everything he got. And he found, it doesn't matter if you give everything you've always got something left afterwards for the next task. And that made him a very successful man. And the reason I tell this story is because soon we're going to have an auction. And when we have an auction, please give it everything you've got. Don't think there'll be nothing left afterwards. You will always have something left when you give life everything you've got. And that's a beautiful way of living life. It's through inspiration. Don't follow the head, follow the heart. Science has showed that when we keep thinking about it, oh, I shouldn't do this, maybe I can't afford it, you will regret that for the rest of your life. Don't think whether you can do it, whether you should do it, or whatever. You feel your heart, no, this needs to be done. That's why I became a monk. I didn't become a monk because I thought this was a good lifestyle. I felt it. That's why we brought Dharmasar nuns monastery, a ridiculous thing. But I felt it. That's why I ordained bhikkhunis, or had them ordained. It was a very dangerous thing to do, and if you kept thinking about it, there were so many reasons why you shouldn't. But I felt it in here. It needed to be done. And even, I didn't care if I was going to lose something. It was worthwhile doing, and of course, I haven't lost anything from being ordaining bhikkhunis, but gained so much. So please, be inspired. I'm not just saying this to get money. We'll get the money anyway. This is a good project. It's just who can get in there first before we've raised too much. And please, I don't mind saying this, because there was one person who's already given a lot of money. I won't say the name, but the sister is here. He gave already, sent over, we received it, $108,000 Australian for this project. And apparently he's, okay, clap. And his sister told me this evening that he was asking, how much more do we need? And I told him, he said, listen, give other people a chance. So I told him, he said, at most, we'll only receive another 108,000 from you, but no more. That's your limit. You say this because, you know, when you build things like this, you know, sometimes I know enough really wealthy people, you can get just one wealthy person to sponsor the whole thing. But that's not right. Because every one of you, whether you give $1, 50 cents, or $1 million, I want everybody to be a part of this. It is your monastery, not just the nuns' monastery. It belongs to the monks, the nuns, but most importantly, every person sitting in this room. It belongs to Hong Kong as well. It's your monastery as well. You know, sometimes the separations of distance, I don't say they're separated. The great oceans between us and Hong Kong are not what separates us, but what joins us. I like to look at it that way. And in our modern world, people in Hong Kong and all the other countries later on to do fundraisers for this project, you are going to benefit from it. Not only in inspiration, you're going to come here, you're going to see this. The nuns from Dharmasar are going to go to your places. It belongs to all of us. That's why I don't want any one person to own this, everybody to have a chance. And if you don't get a bid for whatever's being auctioned today, it doesn't matter, just put a few dollars in the box anyway. Because we're not really selling things here. We're not just, my robe. You're auctioning my robe, for goodness sake. It's a dirty old robe. Not even St. Vincent de Paul or the Salvation Army would accept it. It's my old shoes. This is, if you really want to feel what it's like to be Ajahn Brahm, buy those shoes and walk a mile in Ajahn Brahm's slippers. Wear the robe and see what it feels like. All this stuff which we're auctioning off, it is just an excuse to make sure that everyone has a chance to support something which is really worth supporting, to be part of something bigger than you. And already, I have no plans to die. People won't let me die. They say another 60 years we might let you, but not now. But I know that when I pass away, I'm going to look back on my life. And when you look back on your life, what have I done? What have I done with my life? And for me, anyway, I've built Bodhinyana Monastery, some of it with my bare hands, helped so many people, written really good books which have saved people's lives, and get rid of their cancers, taught meditation, which has done incredible things for people, ordained so many monks and so many nuns. I'm going to die. I'm going to be blissed out. When I die, you can see the smile on my face from ear to ear. That's probably what I will die of, laughter and smiling. Because that's the happiness which you have, when you realize you've lived a life, not just for yourself, for your family, for your society, something which you've really done to make this place a far better world. We call that the law of karma, but don't give it such a name. You can feel that in your heart. Something you've really done which has worked, created peace and happiness, something which you are truly proud of. And people tell me that. They're really proud of their monks and their nuns and their Buddhist society. And my goodness, traveling around the world, I think you've got a right to be proud of what you've created here. The envy of many parts of the world. Well done. I'm now going to clap all of you. So, I don't know how the time is going, Dennis. A good time to finish off? Okay, very good. So, I wish you all the best of luck in the auction. Don't matter if you win or lose. Have fun. Every bid which you bid brings the price up for the next person. And if you happen to be the one who gets the prize, well done. You know what many people do? They say, okay, I've given the money now we re-auction it. Auction it a second time. That's happened so many times because it's not to get these things. It's the opportunity to give. That's the most important thing. The opportunity to be part of something much greater than any one of us. Something you'll die with a happy feeling in your heart, knowing what you've achieved. Something historic, something wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, Dennis. Very good.